I'm going to show you a ridiculously easy way of banging out a delicious butter chicken dish that you can prepare in your own kitchen and that you and your kids are going to love, using just these store-bought ingredients that I know some of you may well already have in your own kitchen. Well, maybe not this one. In fact, when we did a completely non-scientific taste test at home, my kids actually preferred this version to a more authentic recipe that took longer to make, had more steps, and was generally more fiddly. So for me, that's a win. So the first thing you have to know is that butter chicken is actually just two elements. There's the chicken part, or the butter chicken, and the story goes that the original recipe was invented by a chef in Delhi in the 1930s as a delicious way of presenting leftover tandoori chicken that had been baked the day before. But in this recipe, we're instead going to use chunks of chicken that have been flavoured in a lovely spiced marinade. And then there's the sauce or gravy component, which I'll show you how to make. So, we're on to the marinade. And you'll need a tablespoon of yogurt. Now, I like Greek yogurt, but I don't think it matters much, because what you're after is a bit of liquid and a bit of acid. So lemon juice will work just fine if you don't have yogurt. Next, some turmeric. Some Kashmiri chili powder for the mild heat and the lovely red colour. Some salt. Some ginger paste, some garlic paste, and give it a good mix. For a long time, I had followed the commandment in Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential, where he talks about garlic paste, and he says, "Avoid at all costs that vile spew you see rotting in oil in screw-top jars. Too lazy to peel fresh? You don't deserve to eat garlic." So I would spend weeks, if not days, peeling fresh garlic and slicing it with the sharp knife that he also told me I needed. And if you want to do that, great, go for it. The dish will taste great. But we're aiming for efficiency here, not perfection. And so now I would say, do use the stuff in jars and let's move on. Right, chicken. You want thin pieces. And this is one of those dishes where I don't think it really matters whether you use thigh meat or breast meat. It's still going to come out tender and delicious, so use what you have. Add the pieces to the marinade and get everything thoroughly mixed. And like here, I usually start with a spoon or fork, but I always get impatient and end up using my hand. Set it aside, at least for 15 minutes, but if you were super organised, you could certainly cover and let it marinate overnight in the fridge. While the chicken's marinating, let's get on with the first step of the sauce. I need to finely chop an onion, and so for this, I totally agree with Mr. Bourdain in that you need a sharp knife. And fry the chopped onion in a couple of tablespoons of oil and butter on a moderate heat until it starts to soften and change colour and give off that lovely aroma. About 10 minutes of gentle sweating. Set it aside and wipe out the pan. Add some fresh oil to the pan and fry off the chicken. Depending on the size of your pan, you might need to do this in a couple of batches as you don't want to steam the chicken. And it's at about this point that the other people in the house will start asking you, what's that amazing smell coming out of the kitchen? Right, do that until the chicken is cooked, about 10 to 12 minutes for pieces of this size, and, when you've got a bit of a sear on the outside. Okay, great. Transfer the pieces to the bowl and turn off the heat. So to complete the sauce, now the original recipe calls for cashew nuts and freshly chopped tomatoes to be added to the onion and spice mixture, the whole thing cooked out, and then blended and then strained, and what you end up with is this amazing aromatic creamy sauce. And it was this that the flavour and the textures of this that I wanted to try and replicate. And I thought we could try this with some pre-blended products. And the first one of those was a pre-blended nut product, in other words, peanut butter. I know peanuts aren't true nuts, but, then nor are cashew nuts. And then the second cheat is coming in a couple of moments. Right, you'll have to trust me on this next bit. So in a bowl, take 2 to 3 tablespoons of smooth peanut butter and let it down with some water, in about a cup here. And as you can see, at first it doesn't look exactly appetizing, but trust me on this and just keep going. Add this peanut butter slurry back to the pan and turn on to a low or moderate heat to gradually bring it to the boil and use it to help deglaze the bits from the bottom of the pan. And then add back the softened onion, some sugar, some salt, some vinegar, some garlic paste, some Kashmiri chili powder, And last but very definitely not least, garam masala. So stir in all the spices and seasonings and your kitchen's going to be smelling ever more fabulous. And now it's time for the second cheat. Pre-strained tomatoes. Passata. Readily available from any supermarket. Add about a carton to the sauce and about 400 mils and stir it in. And add the lid, and it's important here to let the ingredients cook out for a good 20 minutes. So what exactly is garam masala? So garam means hot or warm, and a masala is simply a spice blend or a spice mixture. So a garam masala, however you want to say it, is a warm spice blend. Now, just as there's no one true blended whiskey, there's no one true garam masala. And in fact, you'll get all sorts of variations from all over India. But most of them contain a few of the same ingredients, and if you were to buy a commercial blend, or if you wanted to make one for yourself, this might be a good place to start. Into a dry griddle pan, add some coriander seeds, some cumin seeds, some fennel seeds, some cardamom, some cloves, some peppercorns, some star anise, some cinnamon, and some nutmeg. Then gently roast them until they release their wonderful aromatic oils. And then pour them into a mortar and pestle and grind them until you have a wonderful garam masala. So if you want to make a garam masala for yourself, follow this recipe. It'll be wonderful. But for the rest of us, we're aiming for efficiency here, not perfection. Buy a commercial mix. Let's move on. What I will say though, and I learned this from Cyrus and Tony, is make sure your spices are fresh. Make sure they're in date. And if you're anything like me before I took on board their advice, you'll have a cupboard that's got lots of dry, old, flavourless, dusty spices lurking in there. Throw them out. Buy fresh spices and you'll notice the difference in flavour immediately. Do it. Alright, so the sauce has had 20 to 30 minutes to cook out, and with the occasional stir to make sure it's not sticking to the bottom, and just look at how rich and appetizing it's become. And the smells, the aroma here is wonderful. So we're almost there. At this point, all you need to do is add a good drizzle of cream and a generous knob of butter. And if you want, you can stop there and say the sauce is done. But there's a final magical ingredient, really. And I, at first, couldn't believe that this would make any difference. But my children told me otherwise. They much preferred the flavour with this ingredient. And that is crushed fenugreek leaves, or kasuri methi. So it's surprisingly readily available here in the UK. And, if you can get your hands on some, then do add it to this dish. You'll really notice the difference. All right, so there we are, the sauce. So we're almost at the finish line. So now add back the chicken and stir it into the sauce. Let the whole thing heat through on a very gentle heat for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you're ready to serve. So here I've got a drizzle of cream, some lovely fresh coriander leaves or cilantro leaves, and there we are. So do make it for your friends, for your loved ones, and I'd love to know what you think. Enjoy!